Am I the butthole for cutting my parents out of my will after they disowned me? Hey Reddit, I never imagined I'd be posting here, but I need some unbiased input on a difficult decision I made regarding my parents. It's a long story, but here goes. I 38 came out to my parents when I was 22. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done because deep down, I knew they wouldn't take it well. My parents are extremely traditional, conservative, and religious. Even as a kid, I was always aware of their views on people like me. But I thought, or maybe hoped, that when the time came, they'd still love me unconditionally, even if they didn't agree with my lifestyle. Boy, was I wrong. When I sat them down to tell them, their reaction was worse than I could have imagined. My dad just sat there, stone-faced, while my mum sobbed and kept saying she had lost a son. They told me that my choices were against everything they believed in, that I was a disappointment to the family, and that they couldn't continue to support me in any way emotionally, financially, or otherwise. Then, they cut me off completely. That same night, my dad told me I had to move out. I was still in college at the time, living at home, and this decision left me scrambling. They didn't care where I went, as long as I was out of their sight. I was devastated. I had just lost the only family I'd ever known. I spent the next few months couch surfing with friends and barely getting by, but despite how hard that period of my life was, I refused to let their rejection define me. Over time, I found my footing. I got through college with the help of student loans and part-time jobs, and eventually, I built a successful career for myself. Along the way, I met my partner, Ryan 36M, who became my biggest source of support. We've been together for the past 10 years, and he's been my rock through it all. For years, I had no contact with my parents. They made it clear I wasn't welcome, and I accepted that. It was painful, but I moved on with my life. I figured that was the end of our relationship, and I'd never hear from them again. But a few years ago, out of the blue, they reached out to me. I got a long letter from my mum apologizing for how they treated me and saying they wanted to reconnect. She claimed they had changed and were ready to accept me and Ryan into the family. At first, I was really skeptical. After all, they had disowned me without hesitation. I wasn't sure if this newfound acceptance was genuine or just another phase in their life. But after a lot of thought, I decided to give them a chance. Maybe people can change, I thought. We started slowly rebuilding our relationship. I allowed them back into my life, but I always had my guard up. Something about their apology felt surface level, like they were going through the motions of reconciliation without actually addressing the years of pain they caused me. They never really acknowledged the depth of their rejection or how deeply it hurt me, but I didn't want to stir the pot, so I let it slide for the sake of peace. In the past couple of years, I've noticed my parents making subtle comments about my financial success. Ryan and I have done well for ourselves, and they've started making these little remarks about family inheritance and what they expect. This was a huge red flag for me because, for years, they acted like I wasn't even part of the family. Now, all of a sudden, they're talking about inheritance like nothing happened. That's when I made the decision to cut them out of my will. I've worked hard to build a life that my parents played no part in. They didn't support me through college, through the early years of my career, or during my toughest times. Ryan was the one by my side, not them. I decided that when it came to my estate, I wanted to leave everything to Ryan and the charities we care about, not to people who disowned me for over a decade. A few weeks ago, my parents somehow found out that I'd excluded them from my will. I suspect a family friend spilled the beans, but either way, they're furious. They called me up, accusing me of being petty and holding a grudge. My mum went on about how family is family and how I have a duty to leave something to them. The audacity of them telling me that, after they cut me off when I needed them most, was just too much. Now, they've got other relatives involved, and some of them are siding with my parents, saying I should let the past go and include my parents in my will because they're still my family. But I don't see it that way. They disowned me when I didn't fit into their ideal vision of family, and now that I've built something for myself, they expect to benefit from it. It doesn't sit right with me, but I'm starting to second guess myself. Am I being too harsh? Should I have forgiven and forgotten everything for the sake of family? So, Reddit, am I the butthole for cutting my parents out of my will after they disowned me?